and Polity frequently features questions from the chapter Responsibilities of the State and Union Governments, often framed around federalism, institutional friction, and constitutional mandates. Below is a selection of high-yield, structured questions and answers tailored to the current analytical expectations of the exam. Question 1. Constitutional duties versus federal friction. 15 marks, 250 words. Q. Examine the structural relationship between Article 355 and Article 356 of the Indian Constitution. In light of recent conflicts regarding internal security and law and order, how can the Union balance its obligation to protect states without undermining their autonomy? Model answer. Introduction. The Indian Constitution establishes a quasi-federal system with a centralizing bias designed to protect national integrity. Articles 355 and 356 in Part 18 represent the apex of this centralizing architecture, defining the line between Union intervention and state autonomy. The structural relationship. Article 355 as the duty. It imposes an explicit constitutional duty on the Union to protect every state against external aggression and internal disturbance, and to ensure that the governance of the state is carried on in accordance with the Constitution. Article 356 as the mechanism. It provides the operational tool to fulfill that duty. If a state government cannot function according to constitutional provisions, the president can assume direct control, President's rule. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's vision. He emphasized that Article 355 was added precisely to ensure that Union intervention under Article 356 is not arbitrary or a routine intrusion, but a solemn constitutional obligation of last resort. Emerging areas of friction. 1. Unilateral deployment of central forces. Friction regularly arises when Central Armed Police Forces, CAPFs, are deployed to handle internal security crises without the explicit concurrence of the host state, challenging the fact that public order and police are state subjects. List 2. 2. Expanding jurisdiction of central agencies. The legislative expansion of jurisdictions for agencies like the NIA, CBI, or the Enforcement Directorate is often viewed by states as a backdoor dilution of their autonomous policing powers. 3. Misuse of internal disturbance. In the landmark Sarbananda Sonowal v. Union of India case, the Supreme Court ruled that challenges like unmitigated illegal migration can constitute internal disturbance, opening up broad interpretations for Union intervention. Way forward and balancing measures. To protect the federal balance without compromising national security, India must lean into institutionalized consultation. Sarkaria Commission Guidelines. Article 356 must be used very sparingly, and only when a state fails to comply with explicit directions issued under Article 365. A formal warning should be given to the state before invoking it. S.R. Bomai, 1994. Safeguards. The material basis for invoking Article 356 is subject to strict judicial review. The State Assembly should not be dissolved until Parliament approves the proclamation. Activating the Interstate Council. Article 263. Security mandates and deployment protocols should be institutionalized through consensus-building bodies rather than top-down executive circulars. Question 2. The evolving role of the governor. 10 marks, 150 words. Q. The office of the governor has increasingly become a battleground for center-state relations, particularly concerning legislative assent. Discuss the constitutional limits of the governor's discretionary powers under Article 200. Model answer. Introduction. The governor is designed as a vital constitutional bridge between the Union and the state. However, when the position acts as an agent of the center rather than an objective constitutional head, it directly fractures the principle of cooperative federalism. Constitutional boundaries of Article 200. When a bill passed by the state legislature is presented to the governor, Article 200 provides 4 specific pathways. 1. Grant assent immediately. 2. Withhold assent. 3. Return the bill, if it is not a money bill, asking the legislature to reconsider. 4. Reserve the bill for the consideration of the President. Bill passed by state legislature. Fill down pointing triangle. Article 200 options. Fill down pointing triangle. Fill down pointing triangle. Fill down pointing triangle. Grant assent. Return for revision. Reserve for President. Fill down pointing triangle. Fill down pointing triangle. Fill down pointing triangle. Fill the check. Sorry will tartar zapas. Dakig tifai for the toy water fill sase. becomes law if repassed. Governor-President decides, must grant assent. Article 201. The misuse of discretionary pocket veto. The primary modern point of friction is the practice of simply sitting on bills indefinitely without choosing any of the four pathways. This halts the state's legislative process. Judicial clarifications and correctives. The State of Punjab ruling. The Supreme Court explicitly ruled that a governor cannot utilize a pocket veto to subvert democratic governance. If a governor chooses to withhold assent, they must return the bill to the legislature immediately. If the legislature passes the bill a second time, the governor is constitutionally bound to grant assent. Punchy Commission recommendation. The Commission strongly recommended amending Article 200 to inject a strict time frame, e.g., 6 months, within which a governor must decide on a bill, effectively eliminating the loophole of indefinite delay. Question 3. Fiscal asymmetry and state autonomy. 15 marks, 250 words. Q. The growing reliance of the union government on cesses and surcharges has structurally weakened fiscal federalism in India. Critically evaluate this statement in the context of the financial responsibilities of states. Model answer. Introduction. While the Constitution distributes legislative powers heavily toward the center, the operational responsibilities for public welfare, health, education, and infrastructure fall overwhelmingly on the states. This structural gap requires balanced revenue sharing, a mechanism currently under strain. The mechanics of fiscal dilution. Under Article 270, taxes collected by the union are shared with the states based on recommendations from the Finance Commission. However, cesses and surcharges collected by the union are explicitly excluded from this divisible pool. Fiscal factor. Impact on state finances. Rising share of cesses. By recent financial cycles, non-divisible cesses and surcharges have climbed to roughly 15 to 18% of the union's gross tax revenue. The real devolution gap. While the Finance Commission legally mandates a 41% horizontal devolution of central taxes to the states, the actual effective share reaching the states is significantly lower due to the excluded pool. Conditional borrowing limits. The union's imposition of stringent borrowing caps, combined with attaching mandatory conditions to extra fiscal space, e.g., power sector reforms, restricts a state's capacity to fund regional welfare programs. The operational impact on states. This structural dynamic creates a direct mismatch between a state's executive responsibilities and its economic tools. The performance penalty. Economically advanced regions that control population growth face a demographic penalty in general allocations, while simultaneously losing direct fiscal control over local development. Over-reliance on central schemes. States are pushed towards centrally sponsored schemes, CSS. These programs typically enforce a rigid, one-size-fits-all framework, leaving little room for states to customize policies to their unique regional demographics. Structural reforms needed. 1. Amend Article 270. Reform the terms of reference for future finance commissions to include a formula that caps the proportion of revenue the union can collect via cesses, or mandate that cesses kept beyond a certain time frame be automatically rolled into the divisible pool. 2. Expand the GST Council model. Replicate the consensus-driven governance framework of the GST Council into other multi-jurisdictional areas like expenditure management and health infrastructure. 3. Institutionalize subsidiarity. Policy and financial autonomy should sit with the lowest level of government competent to manage it, allowing the union to focus its resources on strategic national goals. Strategy blueprint for answering GS Paper 2 questions. Lead with constitutional articles. Anchoring your points in Articles 256, 257, 263, 355, or 356, turns a generic essay into a precise, high-scoring legal and political analysis. Incorporate judicial landmarks, referencing cases like S.R. Bomai, Sarbananda Sonowal, or recent SC judgments on the powers of the governor, signals deep legal literacy to the examiner. Reference commissions. Ground your policy recommendations in established frameworks by explicitly citing the Sarkaria Commission or the Punchy Commission.